Now, an unprecedented media battle is brewing between the New York Times and the firms behind ChatGPT. The famed newspaper announced Wednesday that it is suing OpenAI and Microsoft for copyright infringement. It says the tech giants used millions of Times articles to train ChatGPT and other AI models without compensation. Other big media firms like the Associated Press and German publisher Axel Springer have reached licensing deals with OpenAI for use of their data, but the New York Times has not yet been able to reach a deal. This is the first such lawsuit of its kind by a major news publisher, and it will be watched closely, as you can imagine, by both the media and the tech world. Microsoft and OpenAI have not commented on the suit, but they have said in the past that news articles can be accessed under, quote, fair use provisions. Now, for more on the gray lady seeing red, I'm joined by Noam Shemtov. He is Professor of Intellectual Property and Technology Law at Queen Mary University in London. And glad to have you with us for your insights. Can you outline for us the basis of this case? You know, the New York Times alleges its news was used to train AI, teach it to actually think and feed off of that intellectual property, which the New York Times says is not free to use.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. And in essence, ChatGPT, so that's the OpenAI's chatbot, is an AI language model that without going into the fine details of the technology that underpins it uses or it identifies patterns from huge or vast amount of data, and then it employs those patterns in its output as a chatbot. Now, a New York Times a complaint appears to focus on the input, that is the content that is created by New York Times and is being used for training, rather than the output which is generated by OpenAI or by ChatGPT. And for most intents and purposes, or in most cases, the use of copyrighted material in the training of chatbots is likely to involve copyright infringement, not because use is about copyright infringement, but because use involves the creation of copies, so machine copying, in the creation of those vast data sets. And this is where the dispute, what the dispute is all about.
Interesting. I want to talk to you about the dollar figure here, because the lawsuit doesn't pin it down to a certain number of damages, but what's at stake in revenue terms? Is this a legal tactic, meaning they are doing this, launching this lawsuit so that they have a stronger hand when it comes to asking for that compensation?
I think this is quite likely, but what is also likely is that would give them a stronger hand in negotiating a license which is more to their liking with OpenAI. Now, when I look at, admittedly, this early stage, the little details that we have, it appears that a New York Times focuses, and if I'm actually going to your article, is focusing on the fact that it uses its data in order to ultimately compete with the New York Times and this is where the connection to fair use, I believe, is being made, because OpenAI claims that the use or the complaint use, the contested use, is fair use. One of the things that I can see New York Times doing here is trying to preempt that by focusing on one of the four factors of fair use, which is the nature and character of the contested use. And if it is commercial in nature, then that would weigh against a finding of fair use. And interestingly, this is even more so in light of a very recent Supreme Court case, so from May 2023, of Warhol versus Goldsmith, a very different factual matrix.
But still involving intellectual property.
Absolutely, and there the Supreme Court seems to focus on the commercial nature of the complaint used. Hence, the New York Times focusing here on OpenAI competing with it,
Hmm.
that's that.
Right.
I believe that this is
Which,
one.
yeah,
Yeah,
which may be a
sorry.
fair argument at this point. I mean, we'll see what happens in court given the valuation of some of these AI companies. Professor Noam Shemtov, we'll have to leave it there, but
Absolutely,
thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
pleasure.